Welcome to the Entrepreneur Mindset Mastery Podcast, where we help you pull the weeds from the garden of your mind so that you can flourish in your life and business. With your hosts, entrepreneur coach Simon Page and business coach Robert Peterson.
Well, welcome to the Entrepreneur Mindset Show, Season 2, the Universal Laws. Today we're talking about the Law of Correspondence, the Law of Cause and Effect, and the Law of the Perpetual Transmutation of Energy.
All right, this is going to be a good one. Let's jump right in, right? Law of Correspondence, right? This is the one that says that there will always be a correspondence between the outer world and the inner world. What's that? As within, without, as above, so below, right?
Yeah.
So this is what's going on in us and within us. We're creating without, and what we're allowing around us, we're taking into us. Is that kind of how you see this?
Yeah. I mean, when Kevin was here just a couple of weeks ago, he shared, that idea that our reality is the mirror, right? And when he was talking about the law of attraction, so much of that mirror reality is reflected in the law of correspondence.
And that's Coach Kevin Carton, who did our Law of Attraction special. So if you haven't seen that or haven't heard that, go check it out. Kevin is one of a kind, a man well beyond his years.
Absolutely. I think that's episode 2 of season 1, right?
Episode 2, season 2.
Oh, yeah. Season 2. Sorry. Yeah,
we're in season 2.
Yeah,
can't believe we're in season 2. So yeah, one of the things that really strikes me about the law of correspondence, and before I realized that these laws, before I became aware of them, man, I lived in such a scarce world, and I always, I wouldn't say bitter, but I was grumpy about it. Right? It's like my parents were always broke. I was raised broke. Why am I was a software engineer. I was making close to 6 figures by the time I was 30. Why was I struggling from paycheck to paycheck? And really what it comes down to is I was a grumpy person. My sense of humor was entirely dry, sardonic sarcasm. I wasn't creating a sense inside of abundance and peace and joy and love. I was snarky all the time. And so the universe said, well, that's who you want to be. There's your life.
Absolutely. And it's crazy how I guess so many people feel like, Norman Vincent Peale's The Power of Positive Thinking, was just a woo-woo book, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and even though he includes such great examples and we've had plenty of evidence to the contrary, but you and I are both fans of James Allen.
Oh yeah.
And as a man thinketh, right? And his world becomes, and so it's not just our thinking, right? I think our thinking and our attitude, they kind of, because I guess you could think positive thoughts and still have a negative attitude. Maybe not. I think they go together though, right? I mean, your thought life impacts your attitude.
I think it's the key here is your authentic thought life.
Oh,
right. It's not just I'm gonna be happy. Watch me. It's not. You can't just put on airs of abundance. You can't fake your way into the laws of the universe. It's not like you on a test.
Right. They're going to reflect reality. They're going to reflect what's really going on in your mind. And and I think for a lot of people, they're similar to you when you were that software guy. Hey, my parents were broke. I'm broke. The world's not fair. I'm just a victim of, all the circumstances going on around me, and they're living their lives saying, well, it's not my fault.
Victim. It's, if we go back to the scale of character, the victim is right down there on the bottom. But I think it's not just people who like to play the victim. I want to make sure that we're not like saying, people, there are definitely people who are, oh, woe is me. I'm such a poor person. All this always happens to me. Why me, etc. Yes, those people exist, but you can be vibrating at that same level without being a martyr, right?
Right.
There is, if you are living a life where you have low self-esteem, you feel badly about yourself all the time, just if you're living in a space where your cognition about yourself and your situation is deprecating,
Hmm.
you're creating your outer conditions, right? And it won't, I'm not saying that if you feel, if you have low self-esteem, that things will happen to make you not have self-esteem. But that low self-esteem, by its very nature, cuts out the possibility to act with power and confidence.
Hmm.
So acting with power and confidence is a way that you create stability. So if you're not acting in a way that creates stability, then you are by default acting in a way that creates chaos and instability. And so people who have low self-esteem and do nothing to fix it are going to end up in lives that are chaotic and not very stable. And
Yeah.
you can check this. Ask 100 people with low self-esteem what their life is like. There aren't many exceptions. Sorry, Robert, go ahead.
No, I was interrupting you. I'm sorry. So you mentioned chaotic and fearful, and people that don't necessarily recognize that they're living as a victim, right? But yet somewhere inside of them, they feel like that life is happening to them.
Yes.
And and the shift that has to happen to use the law of correspondence to your advantage is really just the shift of saying life is happening for me, not to me. And it sounds so simple, and obviously it's more challenging to apply. But you mentioned it, responsibility, right? Taking responsibility um, for your life, and that can lead to being grounded. That can lead to calm. That can lead to peace, and it happens because you own it. you own whatever's happening to you, and this is where it gets challenging for people, right? Because there are such things as accidents. There's 8 million other people on this planet operating, 8 billion other people on this planet operating in their free will, and occasionally they're going to run into each other, and negative things happen because of those, including assault and trauma, and there are situations where people really are a victim, but they still have a choice. Right? They still have a choice to do something different, and to think about their situation in a different way, and that can be really challenging.
Have you ever heard of a book called Extreme Ownership?
I don't remember the author though.
Yeah, sadly I don't. I was just trying to pull that up. I want to do that so that we give credit. This is a book that is all about taking responsibility in your life. And it's Jocko Willink. I never put that together. I discovered him through other ways, and I've read that book, but I didn't know it was the same. So props to Jocko Willink. Fabulous book. But the key takeaway for me from that book wasn't that everything is your fault.
Mm.
It's that you are responsible for everything that happens, right? You're not responsible for it happening to you, but you're responsible for your response to it, right? It comes down to the like when people talk about ultimate responsibility from a questioning standpoint, they're often like, well, what about like if I'm driving to work and I get hit by another driver, right? Did I manifest that into my life? And when you are willing to say, if I hadn't procrastinated getting my morning routine done so that I could have left on time, I wouldn't have been in the position to be hit, then yeah. So what do? Do you beat yourself up, or do you pay closer attention to getting your morning routine and schedule dialed in to where you're keeping the commitments that you've made to yourself.
And that's not to say that the other person isn't responsible for
Oh yeah.
the circumstances, but how you deal with that, right? So you get a flat tire on the way to work, right? That's typically not your fault, not your responsibility. But a lot of people go to work and they're, oh, I was late today because of the flat tire, and I'm grumpy today because of the flat tire. And they spend their entire day, upset because of this flat tire that was really just a situation that happened on their way to work.
How many of you know people who have something happened to them that took a span of 10 to 60 seconds and it, air quote, ruined their entire day?
Or week or month or yeah, absolutely.
It only does that because they ruminate on it.
Well, not just ruminate; they flat out complain about it, and it becomes their excuse for.
It's their identity for the day.
Absolutely, it's their excuse for their behavior for the rest of the day, in every meeting, in every interaction, and if you get to be a fly on the wall, if you get to see this, right, even if it's yourself, right, you get to pull outside of yourself and you look at how you're interacting with people. Imagine the difference if you just take responsibility and say, oh, flat tire happened. I have to change the tire. Gosh, that sucked. But now I can choose to be who I want to be, right? I can say, okay, flat tire sucked. That was bad. But now we're moving on. And it no longer impacts, right? That's just that level of responsibility, saying that was just an incident. It's not who I am. And this person that's upset about the tire is not who I want to be. And now I can go through the rest of the day. And
because you are, right? Can I jump on that real quick?
Absolutely.
Every single minute of every single day, you are choosing who you want to be, right? Every single instant, everything that happens to you, someone cuts you off in traffic, you decide how you respond. How you decide how you will respond determines the energy that you're putting into the universe, determines by the law of correspondence the kind of life you're leading.
When it determines that feeling inside of you, right?
Yeah.
If you feel broken, chaotic, and fearful, then chances are you're allowing life to happen to you rather than believing that life is happening for you.
Yeah.
See, what you don't know is that the universe was protecting you, and that flat tire prevented you from being in the middle of that intersection when that other person ran the red light. Whew.
Oh. And
Right?
and now a flat tire is an opportunity for gratitude.
Absolutely. And just think about how different you feel, right? I can own that. I can say, all right, the tire stunk, but it was a lot better than other options, right? It's a lot better than the car breaking down. It's a lot better than having to take the bus. It's a lot better. There's just so many things that we can be positive, and really gratitude is a great tool.
But flat. At least it wasn't the water pump.
Right.
All day.
To use the law of correspondence for yourself and as a growing opportunity, I think it really is. This is one of the laws that you can use it to grow rather than just, it's not like an on and off switch, right? And so being able to ask yourself, what can this situation show me about myself, and what requires healing inside me? And if I have the willingness to ask myself that, right, when I'm out of harmony with the person I want to be, right, when I feel that chaos, that anger, that those feelings that I don't want to have, and I'm willing to ask myself, what about this situation shows me what's inside me that needs fixed, that needs healed, that needs transformation? That's a great opportunity for growth.
It really is. The whole idea that we create the world that we're in seemed so foreign to me just a handful of years ago, and I'll be honest. A decade ago, I was one of those people that was poo-pooing the law of attraction and all of this kind of stuff. So it feels really invigorating to be talking about this because it's it's been an awakening. We'll put it that way. But the thing that I love about it is that this particular law tells us that not only do you live the life that you carry within you in your thoughts and actions and behaviors, it also means that you can design whatever life you want from the feelings up.
Mm.
How do you want to feel every day? Most people they get into life design. They're like, what kind of car do I want? What kind of business do I want? What kind of, community do I want? But go deeper and say, how do I want a car? I want a car in my life that makes me feel, I don't know, powerful and classy.
Mm.
Maybe that Yugo doesn't serve, right? Or maybe I want a vehicle that makes me feel powerful, classy, and frugal,
Mm.
or fiscally responsible. Maybe is a better word, right? So you get to decide not just what you want in your life, but how you want the things in your life to make you feel. That's world changing right there. If you've never thought about this, I challenge you to go through one day of your life and take notes of your feelings and what causes them.
Mm.
And do that for one day. If you're really up for a challenge, do it for a month. And then spend an entire day with no other plans in reflection on those notes.
Well, and obviously each of these laws plays into each other, right? And we've talked about the law of vibration in previous episodes, and for me, the power of correspondence is that switch from this idea that that God or the universe just put us here without purpose or intent, or you attach on to this idea that God and the universe not just put you here, but put you here with purpose and intent, and He's on your side. And when you switch to the idea that the universe is for you instead of against you, that's really empowering. And the idea that the universe is for you and it wants you to have this calm and peace, right? You don't have to live in this chaos that everybody around you is living in because their job is stress. I mean, how many people do you know in your circle that when you get together and you ask, how's it going? They're, oh, my job and stress and overwhelm and tired and disarray and that.
All they
And
do
you
is
have a choice.
all they do is murmur.
Mm.
Murmur, 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 murmur.
Yeah. And you have a choice to not only not murmur, but not feel like murmuring. And that's what's really empowering, right? It's like I'm in control of my life, my body, my feelings, and how I'm reacting to the world. No, does that mean I don't have bad days that I don't feel, 100%? But even my worst day is better than most people's best day. And I love that.
Right? My one of my mentors, I to this day I still catch myself murmur, 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 murmur. I complain sometimes. It is an area of improvement that I am working on, and I I will love this man to the day I die because he did this to me. I was talking about something that happened to me. I don't even remember what, but it was something that was it was impactful. It was negative. Call it a car crash, right? Um, and it was, this was one of the worst things that could happen. Was my mindset. And he said, try changing the phrase to, well, that was an improvable situation. Boom. That blew my mind because everything can be improved, right? But when you think about something as being an improvable situation, you always give it the opportunity for you to think about it in a better light.
Mm.
And improvable becomes the lowest level that you can think of something in.
Mm. It's pretty powerful.
Isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So making the law of correspondence work for you, review how you're thinking. Do it for a day, week, month, whatever you're capable of doing, whatever you think is going to give you a good snapshot. Monitor your thoughts. Monitor the thought life that you are using to create your outer world, right? And then totally just went blank. Remember that every situation is improvable, and ask, how can I take this situation and let it inform me about who I am and what I need, right?
So good.
So
Well, and the law of correspondence really leads right into this law of cause and effect,
yes,
because correspondence is how our inner life, right? What our inner life is a reflection of the outer life. But even we talked about with vibration, what we put out there in the world, thoughts, feelings, statements, what we put out there in the world is what we're going to get back, right? And so the sarcasm and the snarky comments and those things, if that's what we're putting out in the world, then guess what we're going to get back. And so cause and effect kind of takes this correspondence from thought and feelings to our actions. And it has the same idea behind it, right? The world is for us, not against us. And there's a huge difference in that, because so many people believe that they're an effect, right? That I'm just an effect. I'm just a result of evolution and my parents getting together, that I'm just a consequence. But human beings are causative beings. We were created as co-creators. We have the ability to create. Everything around you was created by a human being. The book on your desk, the paper, the mouse, the computer you're listening to this on. So cause and effect is really important, and it's very helpful in recognizing the power that you have. And so the law of cause and effect highlights the relationship between actions and results. And I think what's important to note is that the law of gender applies, in that we don't always see immediate effects. And so that can be a challenge right now in our culture, because we live in this microwave age where we want instantaneous results. We don't have a lot of discipline in waiting. But ultimately, if you are causative force, eventually you'll see the effects, you'll see the results.
Yeah, I think you just about covered it. Yeah. So yes, I love the idea that human beings are causative. We create. We don't just. We're not just the receivers of what the universe does. We are co-creators, like you say. Every action that we put out creates an effect. That effect can be good or bad. Right?
Will be, yeah.
Yeah. It basically has a choice, right? But something that is just occurring to me, and I'm going to have to come up with the proper words for this, but I really think that these two relate more than I've previously thought. The law of correspondence is about the vibrational match between your inner self and your outer world. And the law of cause and effect is about the energetic match between your actions and the results that come back to you because of them.
That's pretty good.
They're very similar, but one is internal to external, and one is a cognitive, like what I choose to do will come back. I'm going to have to play with that. But if you have a way to phrase that connects, please drop it in the comments, send us an email, visit the site, whatever. We'd love to see it.
Well, so correspondence, the first step was taking responsibility, right, for how we react and how we feel.
Yes.
And I think the cause and effect is just taking that responsibility a step further. So now we're not just thinking and feeling a certain way, we're acting in a certain way. And so it's taking it to that ultimate level of fulfilling out that, what you just called being in harmony, right? Our thoughts are in harmony, our feelings are in harmony, and now our actions are in alignment, are in harmony. And of course, that means that the results will be in harmony and will come to us.
Yes.
I think that's pretty good. Yeah, I think that's so important that when we take responsibility, we become a causative force for the life that we want.
Yeah, and actually, we've talked about the thought result sandwich, right?
Yeah.
So what you think comes back as your results, because what you think forms your beliefs. Your beliefs determine what actions that you take, and your actions determine your results. Maybe that's what we're talking about. Maybe the law of correspondence is thought to belief. No, nah.
I mean, you're right, because when we talk about the law of cause and effect and how can you take 100% responsibility, is you take 100% responsibility for your thoughts. You take 100% responsibility for what you believe, which you and I both agree that our beliefs are really the thoughts that we repeat to ourselves, the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves and about the world.
Yes.
And then, of course, our beliefs impact our actions. We take action based on what we truly believe. Right? And then, of course, that dictates our results. And so really, that's how you apply the law of cause effect in your life.
The big important part of that, especially for you entrepreneurs out there, our thoughts inform our beliefs, which determine our actions, which gives us our results, which determine our thoughts. It's a cycle, right? If you're doubting and you don't really believe, so you take minimal action and you get a little bit of results, you're going to believe that your action didn't produce any results. So your next pass through, you might choose not to do anything.
Do even less.
Right.
So that's where it's so important to celebrate even those little results, because if in the first cycle you just celebrate that little result, even though it didn't feel like everything you expected or hoped or certainly what you were thinking, you celebrate that little result, and then your brain says, "Ooh, that was a good thing." Yes. And the next cycle around, your brain's going to double down. And so there's huge power in recognizing that cycle and then giving yourself permission to celebrate getting the result that you wanted, even if it's the 1% of the 100% result that you wanted. Because your brain loves celebration, and it will go for that again, and it will double down.
Yep. Yeah. In fact, if you've noticed, there has been a trend. Do you use like task management software at all, like a to-do list? It's something that I love is figuring out better ways to track and organize and things like that. And one of the trends that I've noticed is that task lists, especially in the entrepreneur world, are starting to get a lot of traction if they're gamified. Because when they're gamified, the success is tied to some reward indicator that gives us the dopamine hit that success creates. So in addition to, hey, my ad campaign worked, you also get that 97% efficiency on my landing page. Ding, ding, ding. 5 stars.
And the gamification is accountability that feels good, right? Like,
yeah.
Rather than that accountability of checking a box, right? Our checklist, whatever, check a box. And there's people, don't get me wrong, there's people who love checking boxes. But for the rest of us out there that want to feel like, hey, this was the big win, right? This was hey, you didn't get eaten by the dinosaur today. You're doing great. I think gamification is obviously the reason gamification works is because it's in alignment with how our brain works, and it rewards, if the gamification is set up right, it rewards the right things, and then your brain says, all right, we're going to do that again. We're going to do some more of that. And some of those things, I mean, it's really a tool to expand your comfort zone and yet stay accountable to the things that are important for the growth of your life and growth of your business.
So how do we put the law of cause and effect to work practically in our lives?
Well, I mean, I think it matches what we talked about with the law of correspondence, right? Tracking our thought life. is our thought life in alignment with the life we're creating? And then are the stories we're telling ourselves, our beliefs, right? Are the stories we're telling ourselves about our business, about our reality, about ourselves and our capabilities, our self-worth, are all those stories in alignment, in harmony with what we're after? And then if those things are all in harmony, then are our actions, right? This is where the cause and effect comes in. Are our actions in alignment with the direction that we want to go? And that's where it becomes challenging for a lot of people, right? Because they're convinced that this law of attraction thing, you just got to think it. You just got to have the vision board and draw all the perfect pictures and write down the perfect goals and write down all the perfect stuff. Yeah, that's all great. But all of those are tools to set you up for, guess what? Taking action.
I'm so happy and grateful that I'm going to find a $10,000 gold coin on my way to work today. What?
Or the worst one, I'm going to win the lottery. Yeah.
Okay. You know, I am so, I have always considered the lottery simply to be a tax on people who are bad at math. So
Yeah.
I don't even think of that as an option.
It's
That would have been
never,
a good example.
it's never been an option in my world either, because I like my dollars where I control them.
I know. I mean, as an option when I'm like considering how to make like silly comments about
Oh, right.
wanting things without working for them.
Of course, you live in the city that's live in the city that's known for taking people's money.
Yep. So yeah, make sure from the beginning to end that your thoughts, beliefs, and actions are in alignment with the results that you're trying to create. Don't worry too much if your thoughts, beliefs, and actions are in alignment and the results aren't there yet. They come. You know, I'm often tempted to say it's thoughts, belief, action, marketing results, because there are a lot of things. There are a lot of ways that you can adjust your actions, right? The way that you're trying to present yourself, the way you're trying to, who you're trying to talk to, right, has an impact on your results. So even though your actions might be in alignment, they might not be the correct actions. So never be afraid to try again, right? You never quit. You never fail until you quit.
Absolutely.
So,
well, just and recognizing, and we'll talk more about the law of gender, I think, in well, a couple weeks. It's like law 12, but the idea, and I think you and I've shared this story before, and Kevin shared it again. You know, the bamboos are a great little example. So, it's 8.
It's 8. That'll be next episode, or 2 episodes from now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just recognizing that every seed, right, and your idea is a seed. Your business is a seed, and recognizing that every seed has a germination period, and we don't know the germination period of your idea, of your dream. And for some it's faster, for some it's longer, and just recognizing that if your thoughts, beliefs, and actions are in alignment, that seed will come to fruition and it will produce fruit. It will create the result. It has to, by law.
It has to reproduce in kind, to quote James Allen.
Absolutely.
Right? So let's talk about one of the most challenging to understand, but most important to understand laws. And that is the mouthful, that is the Law of Perpetual Transmutation of Energy. Right? Right? And basically what this law says is that everything is energy, and energy can never be destroyed or created. It is all transforming from one state to another, always and completely. Right? So,
and we know this scientifically. If you go to physics class, and even quantum physics is now still recognizing that, you know, energy cannot be created or destroyed. It exists. The challenge for me was recognizing that my thoughts are energy, that ideas are energy, that my desires are energy, and that was a huge shift for me, recognizing that my brain sends out energy signals, and and those energy signals return. And so recognizing all of those elements of energy that are normally not considered part of the scientific explanation of energy.
Yeah, if you have a question as to whether or not thoughts are energy, I want you to think of the time in your life that you have been the most joyous and the time of your life where you were in the most grief, and examine the disparity of how you felt energetically. There's just no question as to that your thoughts, your feelings are happening at a wavelength. There is a frequency to them, and they can go up and down, right? We talked about that just a couple episodes ago, right? About someone carrying the dark cloud into the room with them.
Right? Absolutely. Well, and even more powerful is, and challenging, like you said it in the introduction of this one, is the idea that our thought energy has the power to be transmutated, to be manifest into the physical equivalent of an object. And obviously all of us know, right, like our smartphone, but the truth is this smartphone was an idea before it became a smartphone. And that idea.
This is the reason why we have such short attention spans.
Right. That idea existed first, if you really want to take it back, first in the mind of God, then in the mind of man, and then from the mind of man became an object, became a real thing. And that's happened with everything that exists around us, right? The computer, the mouse pad, the microphone, the lights, all of these things were ideas before they became objects. And obviously, I can't tell you the steps that it takes to go from an idea to the object. Each of our ideas is different. But now you have the idea of a business, or you have the idea of an income, or you have the idea of an impact that you want to make in the world. And it can be manifested into its physical form through the energy of your thoughts transmuted into that object.
I got nothing.
Well, yeah. So we go back to Jim Rohn, and where your focus goes, your energy flows, right? And Tony Robbins uses that one all the time. And I think for us, the place to recognize is focus and energy. So the previous law, we're talking about cause and effect and action, right? Taking action based on your thoughts and beliefs. And really, this is really, how do you focus that action? How do you use that energy to the best of your ability? The energy of your thoughts, the energy of your ideas. How do you honor those? And I think it's focus and knowing what it is that you want, so that you're. And you mentioned distractions, right? How do we know which distractions to avoid? Which temptations that are going to pull us away from the accomplishment of our dream? I guess science talks about potential energy, right? I remember as a kid how many of my teachers told my parents at a parent-teacher conference, Robert has so much potential. and in a way they were right, because potential is this ability sitting within inside me, and application was I'm not using it. I'm not putting it out there.
Kinetic energy. Or potential energy and kinetic energy.
Absolutely. And for me, the favorite is always the five frogs sitting on a log, and 4 of them decide to jump. How many are left on the log? 5. Because just because you decided to do something doesn't mean you did it. And how many of us have decided to own a business? How many of us decided that we wanted to have a 6-figure income? How many of us decided that they wanted to live out their dream? And yet they haven't taken action because there's still potential. It's all potential.
Yeah.
potential has to be transmuted into kinetic moving energy.
And I know we talked about this recently too, in a past broadcast, but when you have an idea, when divine inspiration hits and you have this idea thinking, oh, that's $1 million maker right there, I should do that. And then you choose to stay on the log, the law of transformation of perpetual transformation of energy states that if you're not going to take it and run with it, I'll give it to something else or to someone else, right? So it's important to be willing to be consciously capable of saying, I'll give this a go. I am open to what the universe is presenting to me. And conversely, you also you want to be able to monitor your thought patterns, your thinking patterns, and eliminate the tendency to follow thinking patterns that are based in fear or apathy. Right? Fear is the mind killer, right? But it's also that thing that it wears a lot of guises. I want to do this thing, but what if? It's a fear statement, right? Even if it's not that bad of a what if, it's still a question based in fear.
Well, and what's crazy is, I think for me, one of the most helpful things in wrestling with some of those fears was recognizing that my inner critic is really trying to protect me. He's more like my father figure saying, whoa, careful. That bike, I love that you're riding your two-wheel bike, but you know that the bikes can fall over if you go too fast. And so recognizing that inner critic is really it's not really afraid. It's a protector. And so I can have a different kind of conversation with a protector versus a fearmonger. And it sounds like, okay, those are the same, but they're not the same thing, right? Because it's hard for men, maybe some women too, but it's hard for men to say they're afraid of something a lot of times. Most, ego and pride and some of those things, and just
yeah, somehow ego and pride became a male thing.
Oh no, they exist. they exist. I've seen some women wrestle with them too, but at least I can only explain it from a male point of view, and the males, obviously part of our evolutionary survival requires men to have been the hunter-gatherers and to not have outward fear, right? Because they had to face the dangers.
I think gender is a lot more fluid. Not to go way down into a rabbit hole, but I think that all of us have masculine and feminine energy.
Of course.
And I think that as you surround yourself and with people who are tolerant and accepting, and divest yourself of people who are judgmental, you naturally create an openness to vulnerability of expressing both the masculine and the feminine. I think that the problem isn't that it's a male thing. I think the problem is that it's a judgmental thing. And that's deeply embedded in our Puritan culture.
Absolutely. No doubt. So the challenge for me had been, all right, if I can't express fear, then these things that people are telling me I'm afraid of, right? I'm afraid to try. I'm afraid to pursue.
To fail.
Afraid to fail. I'm afraid to succeed. Those come across differently for me to wrestle with my thoughts about them when I chose to look at them as a protector saying, hey, if you go outside the cave, you're going to get eaten by the lion. And that's really the basis of that protector voice, right? We talked about the lizard brain saying, woo, it's dangerous outside your comfort zone. There's lions outside your comfort zone and they're going to eat you. And of course, we know that not to be true, but our brain really hasn't evolved past that in a lot of ways. And for me, to wrestle with that protector is a different. I can have conversations with a protector versus the fear. The idea that there's a fear monger.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Control.
It's the thinking mind and the observational mind.
Hmm.
The thinking mind is the thinker of the thoughts. The observational mind is the part of you that is capable of looking at those thoughts and thinking about them critically.
And then have a conversation, right? You name that voice Norm, and you say, all right, Norm, what are you up to? I want to understand, wait a minute. Is that really, what are you worried about? What is the worst thing that's going to happen to me? Right. And being able to have a conversation with that voice. I think for me, the most empowering thing was to recognize that the voice in my head isn't me. And I think for so many years, I thought that voice in my head was me. And so the weird stuff that voice was saying to me, I just took it as part of me and who I was. And once you can separate yourself from that voice, you're like, that's like, oh, that crazy voice isn't me. I'm separate from that crazy voice. And that makes a big difference.
Oh, absolutely. The whole concept of the thinking mind is that it is a part of your subconscious, right? It's not even your entire subconscious. It is just a part of your subconscious. And like you were saying, it's that part that is designed to keep you safe. It doesn't tell you what it's keeping you safe from.
It doesn't even know.
Yeah, very often. But, besides, that would be useful, right?
Well, and then there's some levels now of science that are even starting to say that voice is part of the collective conscious, and that that divine oneness we talked about in the first law is a piece of that voice, that interconnectedness of humanity. And so, but still recognizing that voice is not necessarily your identity. It's not. It sounds like you and it's going to talk like you, but it's not. You're in charge of that voice. Like, that's the big piece for me is, guess what? I can tell that voice right now, hey, stop it, shut up, or why are you saying that, right? And you can actually have a conversation with that voice. It sounds silly and goofy right now on the surface, but the truth is, most of us, all of our lives, have never thought to challenge that voice.
I like to think of that voice as 10-year-old me.
Nice.
I treat it as my inner child, because children are fearful of things for no reason. They're fearful of them simply because they've never been exposed to them. So if I think of that inner voice as a younger version of myself, I can treat it with so much compassion, right? And communication is most effective with compassion.
Yeah.
Right. So if I say, hey, shut up, I'm doing this thing anyway, or I say, hey, listen, I feel your fear. What are you afraid of? What's the worst that can happen? And then I give 10 seconds for the answer to come. It's so easy to overcome when you remember to do it. And that was one of the points I wanted to make was it's easy to recognize that you have the thinking mind and the observational mind, but it's not always easy to remember that there is, as our boy Viktor Frankl said, there's between stimulus and response lies our power to choose our response. The stimulus could be that observational mind telling you to be afraid. And instead of reacting to that, you have to remember that you're allowed to take the few seconds necessary to recognize what it is, to know it for the stimulus that it is, and come up with a response. Right? We call it sitting on our dots. Right? If you can envision in your mind the word stimulus and the word dots, the word stimulus and the word response with an ellipses between them. Right? Because an ellipses is used in literature to show an elapse of time. Stimulus, ... response. Sit on your dots. Right?
And of course, that's really hard for us to do because we're just so quick to react and defend. And we rarely, but that's another level of character, right? Is
Yeah,
that
that's
ability to,
establishing. That's a part of establishing mental discipline.
mm, and obviously having the awareness of, okay, I hear you, and being willing to have a conversation with that voice. And I love what you said, basically. I hear you, right? Acknowledging the voice, giving the voice credit, because you can't turn the voice off. It will never go away. It will never turn off.
Nope.
The louder you try to, the more you try to stop it, especially if you're trying to sleep, the more you try to stop it, the more it's going to bother you, the louder it's going to get. Um, I think acknowledgement is a huge first step in training that voice to work with you.
Yes.
It's always going to try to protect you, and recognizing that it's always going to try to stop you from trying new things and going beyond your comfort zone, because that's its job.
Well, if we talk about the thought life that we were just talking about in the previous laws, if we treat that voice as an enemy, it will always be our adversary.
Oh,
And if we have an adversary inside our heads, how are we creating a thought life that is going to create, to manifest an abundant, calm, peaceful life?
oh, so good. Sounds so obvious, Simon.
It takes being quiet and listening to the answers.
Absolutely.
So there's another part of the perpetual transmutation of energy that I think is really important to our audience, and that is how it relates to the law of rhythm, or sometimes called the law of circulation. Um, most people don't think about the fact that wealth is energy, right? Have you ever watched how wealthy individuals treat finances, right? First of all, they're some of the most charitable people on earth, right? And I don't mean by how much they give, right? Because if you have more, it's easier to give more. But the fact that they give is far more pervasive in wealth than in people who are working the 9 to 5. But what people don't realize is that wealth, when you give wealth, you are creating a vacuum, if you will. Forgive the analogy. You're creating a vacuum within you where you're getting rid of that. That's a bad way to phrase it. When you're removing that from your life, you're creating a space for new wealth and abundance to come in.
Well, just thinking about the flow, right? That circulation flow. The more you put into the flow, the more the flow has opportunity to come back, and yeah, and fill the void you just. It's really that same reflection, right? The more you put out, the more that's going to come back.
Or even more simply, you have to put out for something to come back. I'm probably
Right.
to phrase that. You
Absolutely.
have to put it out into the world for there to be the opportunity for it to come back. Money is not a commodity that you hoard. It is a free-flowing energy in the universe. And here's why. You remember how we talked about action leading to results? Do you know money is an IOU for action?
Mm. Absolutely.
Right? It's buying power, right? Or it's either an IOU for action or it's compensation for action. Somebody worked and earned it. So there's people's energy tied up in wealth, right? It's going to flow. If it doesn't have someplace in you to flow, it'll just go by. It's okay.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't stop to ask.
So make yourself a container to manifest money by giving generously into the universe. And I'm not talking wealth. If you've been tuned in for any length of time, you know that by talking about wealth, money is the easiest way to refer to wealth because it lets us quantify it with a score. But wealth is also joy, abundance, deep, fulfilling relationships. These are wealth. right? So create the capacity for those by giving those.
Absolutely. Well, and I think recognizing that the tools for using this energy and how we transmute energy or idea into manifest results. And I think Napoleon Hill gives us the 6 steps in Think and Grow Rich, and it starts with that burning desire. That all-consuming desire will focus your thought energy, and your energy will help bring about the actions to create the thing that you desire. And so the biggest step is to write down the goal in exact numbers, to visualize it, to feel it, to keep your energy focused on it. And then those thoughts can become things. Thoughts become beliefs, beliefs lead to actions, and actions create results. And now we've said that for 3 laws in a row. And so there's a reason that these laws just build on each other.
I see a pattern forming. Yeah.
Absolutely. But it's, and we've had the conversation before, it's not enough to tell the universe, I want more.
Yeah.
The universe needs
I love how Tony
details.
Robbins talks about that. If I tell you to write down your goal and you say, I want more money, I'm going to give you $1 and kick you out of the room. Yep.
Yeah. The universe doesn't even wait like Tony does. The universe just lets the room pass you by because you haven't been specific. And so the more details, and I think the more feelings that you can attach to your goals, the more you will focus on them, and the more it will help you create the next steps that lead to better results.
Yeah, I think connecting everything to the feeling is that's the key. If you just put a bunch of pictures up on your kitchen refrigerator and every day you walk by and you look and say, wow, those are pretty, you're not manifesting. You have to feel within your heart what it will be like. You have to feel within your heart what it is like to have those in your future self.
So good.
Yeah. That's really what it comes down to. Simon Sinek wrote that fantastic book, Start With Why. And if you break that down, Start With Why is all about connecting what you're doing to reasons why. And reasons always have a feeling behind them. Always. The Toyota process for manufacturing, the 7 levels deep why process. Are you familiar with that?
Not. Maybe I am.
Toyota wanted to increase its manufacturing processes efficiency, and so what they did was they took consultants and engineers and they got them all together in a room and they went through all of their processes, and every single process started with, why do we do that? And they had to ask that question 7 times. The same thing is true when you're digging into your own why. My belief is, and what I teach people when I'm showing people Start With Why and how to connect with their own why, don't go 7 levels deep. You keep going until your statement makes you tear up. And when you put tears in your eyes from stating something that is positively powerful, you found your why.
Absolutely.
Right? Find that and build that into your goals. Visualize what that is and getting to that point in your life, and then feel that when you're looking at your vision, when you're doing your visualization.
So powerful.
Yeah, the feeling is critical.
And it absolutely will engage your focus and engage your thoughts, and it becomes a life-changing process to recognize the universe is for you. The universe is for your highest good. The universe wants you to succeed. The world needs you successful. The world needs you wealthy, because Simon mentioned it's the wealthy that contribute and put the most out into the world. And yes, they're getting the most back in return, but the charities and hospitals and libraries and all of these things are being created in this cycle of energy. And so why not you?
Why not? that is all the time that we have, ladies and gentlemen. That is our episode on the laws of correspondence, the law of, I say laws of correspondence, the law of correspondence, the law of the perpetual transmutation of energy, and the law of cause and effect. I hope you got a lot out of this episode. There is so much that you can take from this to start building a better life. If we can help you, if we can answer any questions, please feel free to reach out. And do you have anything, Robert? The only thing I want to say is how grateful I am for this platform and for you for listening. For all of us.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us.